Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. If you've ever encountered the concept of biblical canonicity, you know that canons are collections of books considered inspired by the Holy Spirit of God, deemed correct and true. However, it's interesting to note that there are different biblical canons. The most well-known ones currently are the Protestant canon, composed of 66 books, and the Roman Catholic canon, which includes about 73 books. In this video, I'll be discussing an ancient book from Jewish literature known as the Book of Jubilees. It's a work that reveals secrets related to Genesis. The Jubilees Manuscript, the book that tells the secrets of Genesis. The Book of Jubilees is sometimes referred to as the Little Genesis or the Second Genesis. This ancient Jewish book consists of around 50 chapters and is considered canonical by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church as well as by the Beta Israel Jews. For the latter, it's known as the Book of Divisions, called in ancient Ethiopian Metzhaf Ngst. Guizi, an ancient language from Ethiopia, belongs to the Afroasiatic language family, thus, it is linguistically related to Semitic and Cushitic languages, namely, it shares linguistic heritage with the descendants of Shem and his brother Ham. The Book of Jubilees was widely recognized among early Christians, mentioned in writings by various ancient authors such as Epiphanius, Justin Martyr, Origen, Diodorus of Tarsus, Isidore of Alexandria, Isidore of Seville, Eutychius of Alexandria, John Malalas, Euthymius I of Constantinople, and George Cadrinos. The text of the Book of Jubilees was also used by the original community that collected the Dead Sea Scrolls manuscripts. Although no complete version in Greek or Latin has survived, the Guizi version, the language of Ethiopia, has proven to be an accurate translation of the fragments found in the Dead Sea Scrolls manuscripts. The chronological framework of the Book of Jubilees is presented in Jubilees, based on multiples of 7. The Jubilees represent periods of 49 years, with 7 weeks corresponding to 1 year, as outlined until the discovery of extensive fragments among the Dead Sea Scrolls manuscripts. The only surviving manuscripts of the Book of Jubilees are 4 complete Ge'ez texts dating from the 15th and 16th centuries, as well as numerous quotations from writers such as Epiphanius, Justin Martyr, Origen, Diodorus of Tarsus, Isidore of Alexandria, Isidore of Seville, Eutychius of Alexandria, John Malalas, Euthymius I of Constantinople and George Cadrinos. Furthermore, there is a preserved fragment of a Latin translation from Greek, which contains approximately a quarter of the entire work of the Book of Jubilees. The Ethiopian texts, currently totaling 27, serve as the main basis for English translations. Passages from the texts of the Book of Jubilees that directly resemble verses from Genesis do not directly reproduce either of the 2 surviving manuscript translations. Consequently, even before the discoveries, it was deduced that the original Hebrew used an unrecorded text for Genesis and the early chapters of Exodus, regardless of the Masoretic text or a Hebrew text serving as the basis for the Septuagint. According to the historian, the variation among manuscript traditions, evidenced by the Septuagint in contrast to the Masoretic text, and those incorporated in other variants among the Dead Sea Scrolls, indicates that even canonical Hebrew texts did not possess a single manuscript tradition in the centuries prior to Christ. Some writers mention the existence of 3 main textual traditions, the Babylonian, Samaritan, and pre-Masoretic translations. Although it is argued that the pre-Masoretic text could have been reliable at that time, there are arguments for and against this idea. Between 1947 and 1956, approximately 15 scrolls of the Book of Jubilees were discovered in 5 caves in Qumran, all written in square Aramaic script, indicating that, more than any other biblical book except Psalms, Deuteronomy, Isaiah, Exodus, and Genesis in decreasing order, Jubilees was widely used in Qumran. A comparison between the Qumran texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls, along with an Ethiopian version that was already in possession before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, was conducted by James Vander. He found that the Ethiopian version was, in many respects, a reliable, precise, and literal translation of the text, compared to the Dead Sea Scrolls, contextualizing the pre-existing Ethiopian knowledge of the Book of Jubilees. Robert Harrison Charles, 1855–1931, was the first biblical scholar to propose an origin for the Book of Jubilees. He suggested that the author of Jubilees could have been a Pharisee and that the book was a product of Midrash, influenced by the Old Testament Book of Chronicles. However, with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the hypothesis of being a Pharisee was discarded, as several copies of the Book of Jubilees were found in the scrolls, indicating an antiquity dating back before the time of the Pharisees. Dating the Book of Jubilees has been problematic for Old Testament scholars. Although the oldest existing copies can be attributed, based on calligraphy, to about 150 to 100 years before Christ, there is much evidence suggesting that Jubilees was written much earlier than this date. Recently, the book has been dated to around 200 years before Christ, but even older discoveries, dated from the 7th century before Christ, indicate the existence of Jubilees fragments dating back to that time. Additionally, remnants of other scrolls discussing texts from the Book of Jubilees have been found, dated from the 7th to the 8th century before Christ. This implies that the Book of Jubilees is much older than previously thought. Now, some curiosities about the Book of Jubilees. Satan is called by another name. As we know, in the Bible, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, Satan is known by various names. In the Old Testament, it was often referred to as Baal, besides being called Satan. In the New Testament, it is called the ancient serpent, Belial, and many other names. In the Book of Jubilees, he is called Mastema, which in Hebrew means hatred, strife, or confusion. This designation has a connotation of hatred, according to ancient Hebrew. The Book of Jubilees, although not part of the biblical canon, offers a unique insight into Jewish theology of the time in which it was written, highlighting the importance of strict observance of religious law and ritual practices as a means of maintaining communion with God. One of the central messages of the Book of Jubilees is the emphasis on faithful observance of divine commandments. The text presents a detailed view of religious laws and rituals, emphasizing their importance in everyday life and in the relationship between the people of Israel and the divine. This reflects the concern of the Jewish community at the time with maintaining its religious and cultural identity amidst political and cultural challenges. Furthermore, the Book of Jubilees highlights the fundamental role of the patriarchs, such as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, in shaping the Jewish faith. These characters are portrayed as models of piety and obedience to God, whose actions and decisions shaped the destiny of the people of Israel. Their stories are retold and reinterpreted in light of the values and beliefs of the Jewish community at the time, emphasizing their ongoing importance to Jewish faith and identity. One of the distinguishing features of the Book of Jubilees is its cyclical view of history. The text organizes historical events into 49-year Jubilee periods, suggesting an understanding of history as a repetitive process, in which patterns and cycles repeat over time. This perspective offers a unique way of understanding the relationship between the past, present and future, highlighting the continuity and constancy of the divine presence in Israel's history. The Book of Jubilees claims that it was Moses who wrote it while he was on Mount Horeb, awaiting the 40 days and nights to receive the 10 Commandments from God. According to the tradition of the book itself, Moses wrote the Book of Jubilees. However, there are controversies about authorship, and I would like to hear your opinions in the comments. Additionally, according to the Book of Jubilees, the Archangel Michael was the one dictating the words while Moses wrote them down. This tradition, contained within the Book of Jubilees, narrates that the Archangel Michael dictated the book, and Moses was the scribe of the revealed words. The Book of Jubilees is a fascinating and deeply intriguing work of great antiquity, consulted by numerous rabbis to address a variety of topics, from the names of characters to the wives of these characters, among other subjects. This text was so respected and referenced in ancient biblical scriptures that priestly circles often cited it. For example, the Hasmoneans adopted the Book of Jubilees and extensively used it as a source for the Aramaic Levi document. Over time, it remained a crucial work for priests and rabbis, despite disagreements and disputes about certain aspects of the book. However, even those who questioned certain points of the book still cited it as a basis for their own interpretations and thoughts on ancient texts. Furthermore, the Book of Jubilees addresses the classification of angels, including angels of presence, those of sanctification, individual guardians, and those who reside over natural phenomena. In a complementary manner, it coincides with another ancient text, the Book of Enoch, particularly regarding Enoch's vision of the fallen angels, known as the Watchers. I invite you to share your opinions on this video, which explores the fascinating Book of Jubilees, an important work in Jewish tradition. Leave your comments and reflections on this ancient work. May everyone be under divine protection, and I'll see you soon.